Meanwhile, the British media, viewers, has not always been very kind to India. However, we do see now a variety of reactions that are coming in from British media outlets regarding the free trade agreement, a landmark and historic deal that has been signed today between India and the UK. From The Guardian to the BBC, they've all had their say on the FTA. Some are accusing the Starmer administration of backstabbing British workers pardon me, by slashing tariffs on Indian goods, while others are hailing this as a landmark deal. Let's quickly take a look at what some of these media outlets in Britain are saying and how exactly is the public reacting. The Sun, for example, has written, and I'm quoting here, "Deal fury. KS slammed for two-tier India trade deal that gives migrant workers tax breaks despite hiking bills for Brit firms, but pact will slash crippling Indian tariffs on British favourites including whiskey, medical devices, chocolate and Land Rovers." Then Sky News has written, UK and India about to sign a landmark trade deal, but not everyone's happy. Indian drink makers worry the UK-India deal could open the floodgates for cheaper products from a plethora of Scotch brands in the UK. The Guardian has written, people said it would never be done, but UK-India trade agreement defies expectations for Britain, this is a much-needed post-Brexit boost, and for India, it shows decades of protectionism are in the past. BBC, meanwhile, has written, India trade deal could undercut UK workers, claim opposition parties. How much truth is there to some of these concerns that have been raised by British media? Take that conversation forward. I have with me Bhaswati Mukherjee, former diplomat. We have Mitali Nikor, economist, Major General SVP Singh. With us on the broadcast is also Dhruv Chauhan, MSc in Management, and a student at University of Leeds in the UK. Ambassador Mukherjee, I want to understand from your perspective, ma'am, does or could the trade deal with India undercut UK workers, as is being claimed by opposition leaders in Britain?
I think British media outlets are just being unnecessarily nasty. The British Prime Minister, in his public statement after the agreement was signed, said this was a historic deal and the biggest that the UK has signed post-Brexit. And why is it such a big deal for UK? Is because they had thought, once they left EU, that they would be able to sign major trade deals on very favorable terms to the UK with several countries, including India. Instead of which, their economy declined. Then you had the COVID pandemic. Then you had the foolish unilateral sanctions imposed by the Americans and the EU, which Britain supported on Russia, which damaged their economy further. And they did not have a single trade agreement post-Brexit with any major power. Today, if you look at the terms and conditions of the trade agreement, it is a very well-balanced agreement. It opens up the British market for a lot of Indian stuff that we have been trying for a long time. There is a double comprehensive agreement which enables Indians to go and work in UK for less than a year and not pay social security, something that we've been fighting for a long time. But on the other hand, it also opens up the Indian market on sectors that the British are very interested in. It will also attract huge amount of FDI flows from India to UK. How ironic can that be, Devika, for our former colonial powers? But more than that, the unwritten messages, it sends a strong message to President Trump that with his threat of imposing tariffs on anyone whom he gets up in the morning and he's annoyed with, so it's 50% today for someone and 60%, then it's 100%, then it's 500%, etc., is letting India actually negotiate very favorable trade deals with developed countries. In this particular case, not so developed because its GDP is much lower than ours now, but with the EU, it's coming up. And why are these developed country blocs doing it? Because they also are very uneasy with Trump's tariff war, and they are looking for new trading partners. So actually, I would say that from a British perspective, the British Prime Minister was absolutely clear and correct when he talked about it being a win-win and talked about it being a historic deal, the first one that Britain has signed post-Brexit. Our Prime Minister said the same, and he talked about the kind of areas where we will be finally be able to get a foothold in, and that includes from traditional sectors like textiles, etc., to non-traditional sectors. In addition, it talks about the huge business opportunities that Indians from India will have in UK and vice versa, and it talks about the huge benefits on both sides. So if the UK media, like the Indian print media here, is bowed down by domestic politics of taking pot shots at each other, they should take a deep breath and look at the fine print. And when you look at the fine print, you'd find it's been very carefully negotiated. And from an Indian perspective, it's also a very big development that this was a trade agreement which Prime Minister's office followed with great interest and encouragement. And it was a trade agreement which marks that India has finally come of age. Because if we are going to be Viksit Bharat, we have to accept trade agreements. We're not a small child anymore hiding in the corners saying, I have to protect my butter, I have to protect my aloo, I have to protect my rice. No, no, no. If you want to be a big player, you have to do these trade agreements. In the beginning, there may be a little bit of bloodshed, but in the long run, to become Viksit, you have to do it. And this is a wake-up call for India. We did it. We'll do it with the EU. We'll do it with the Americans. And those trade agreements we signed 10 years earlier, like with ASEAN, etc., which are not working out well, we will renegotiate them. Absolutely. So that shows there's a new thinking on the part of both sides, UK and India. And speaking now as an Indian, I'm glad that has happened because I have tried so many times to convince those who have a completely closed mind on FTAs in India that we can't anymore run away from FTAs. They should listen to what Indian economists tell them. They should listen to what Mitali will tell them, I'm sure, the same thing, that if you want to be a big boy, you have to behave like a big boy. You're not a small child anymore, hiding under the table. Come out and face the world, face competition, your product ultimately will be better.
Okay, all right. Mitali, bring you into the conversation then. Given the significant projections for increased bilateral trade and also GDP growth, specifically for the UK as well, the Prime Minister was very clear, UK Prime Minister, to highlight today that the FTA is likely to bring in 4.8 billion pounds, additions to their economy and create 2,200 jobs as well. But I want to understand from your perspective then, what are the most critical implementation challenges that both India and UK could possibly face in realizing some of these very ambitious economic benefits?
So I think, first of all, I must agree wholeheartedly with Ambassador Mukherjee that, it's time for India to come out and play. And, it's time for India to come out and take its, place on the global stage, because we are ready. Our manufacturing supply chains might be, of course, not as strong as some of the developed economies, and even maybe not as strong as some of the East Asian economies. Today, I'm sitting in Bangkok, and I can tell you that, there's been a lot of investment in the manufacturing and industrial infrastructure here, but we still have to now compete, because at the end of the day, in a global order which is being defined by President Trump, in many ways, there are threats to our sovereignty, our independence, our economic independence, and we therefore have to come out to the table and play. It's really good that this deal has been negotiated, but I do feel that there are going to be three major challenges in the next decade or so. Some will come, now, and some will come further down the line. The one that will come right now is going to be around demand. We are talking about the fact that Indian workers can go to the UK and they don't have to be paid social security, etc. But for that, jobs have to exist. I mean, it has to be a scenario where, you're going into a thriving economy where there is actual demand for labor. But we know that in the UK currently, unemployment rates are at historic highs. We are sort of seeing a slowing economy, a sclerotic economy in some ways, and we are not seeing sufficient technological innovation in the UK. So I think it's really time for Indian companies, especially Indian IT companies, to go and invest in the UK to bring that innovation in the UK. Some of our own people can go and work there, but at the same time, we have to also use British talent. So that's going to be the first one. The second one is going to be around climate change. And this is a very serious challenge, which I believe will start to come up in the medium term. It's very critical that Indian companies and British companies co-invest in creating special purpose vehicles, in creating research organizations which can actually work on green energy, on renewable energy, and so that we can come up with solutions to the climate challenge, but also come up with financially viable businesses which leverage the opportunity that clean energy and green energy presents, and we can then implement those in the British ecosystem, as well as deploy them in the Indian economy, particularly around clean water, particularly around clean cooking. These are areas which have been a bit ignored, and it's time to create financially viable businesses around them. We are not talking about any sort of aid, but we are talking about innovation. And thirdly, I do believe that geopolitical challenges will be plaguing both countries and will be plaguing this relationship, because on one side we have the US. We are carefully navigating our with the US. The UK has a very strong relationship with the US, and I do believe that this deal will help India also navigate its mini trade deal, or a larger trade deal with the US as it is currently being discussed. But at the same time, this will also help the UK navigate its way into South Asia, into other countries in South Asia like Nepal, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, where India has very good relationships, into the global South, other countries in the global South, because India is a leader of the global South. A lot of African economies are currently linking their supply chains with India. We're also seeing the Middle East linking its supply chains with India, and this gives the UK a precedent as well to link its supply chains with many of the emerging economies in the global South. But of course, these geopolitical relationships have to be navigated as things change, and especially as President Trump's sort of announcements change. So I do believe these three, but a lot of opportunities ahead.
Okay, I want to bring in Major and SVP Singh into the conversation as well. Major Singh, another important aspect that was highlighted by Prime Minister Modi was cooperation as far as the defense sector is concerned. Your views on the same, going ahead, how critical would the FTA, or rather what role would the FTA play as far as defense cooperation and defense trade between India and the UK is concerned?
Thank you. Listen, I want to say what the Prime Minister has said, has to reinstate that, and also what Ambassador Mukherjee covered about the British media's coverage. Now, let me tell the British people, and I hope they could listen to this, that India today has emerged as a global swing state in the US-China contestation. Now, that's a very major move which has taken place with this agreement. Secondly, it creates for India a Euro-Atlantic hedge. So it's a great leap forward, I would say. Thirdly, Britain has pivoted from Pakistan, and a structural shift has taken place in their policy. I remember 1965 war, listening to the BBC and the radio. I was in school and supporting Pakistan and making false news there. And in 1971 also. Today, Britain has come, and now we are emerging as the masters of the colonialists. That is the word I want to use, because that is the emerging power of India. So where is our this thing? Now, in this, what the Prime Minister said in our defense partnership, it is a revival of the comprehensive strategic partnership, which had been little on the low end for the few years, starting from 2021. And we got a roadmap up to 2030 for our defense roadmap. So I think we are right there. And now what is happening in the major part of it I will cover is that what has emerged is co-development. co-development on major equipment armaments which is going to take place. And the first and foremost in this are the jet engines, where Rolls-Royce has offered us something never before any country has done. But today, Rolls-Royce and Safran of the French, they are in a race, giving us full IP intellectual property rights, a great stance that is, because Britain has denied this to NATO also. Design ownership, freedom to upgrade, operate and export. It is unprecedented. We can now export also. That is the emerging agreement which is coming up in this defense strategic impetus which this partnership has given. So jet engines, our fifth generation, is very, very important. We are looking forward to 110 kilonewton up to 130 kilonewton engine. And if that comes, then India is a global player again. We will be the sixth nation manufacturing jet engines after US, Russia, France, Britain, and China. So it's again a great step forward. Now, also emerging in this are the missile and radar and C4ISR collaboration, which will be there. And it is going to be collaboration in the field of the research and development. Now, that is another major pillar which has emerged. There will be co-partnership in our research and development also, which gives India a firm footing for its Atmanirbharta defense. Now, then it is also giving us now with the UK factor a little less dependency on Russia, France, America. We have opened out the other pole, Israel being the other defense partner with us. So this is another factor which Britain has opened up to us. And I think it's a very good thing. It's a fifth pillar to our military diversity, I would say. Britain, which has come up like that. Then the military exercises which take place, there are some trilateral exercises which take place, where even Russia was involved earlier. I do not know what the status would be now, but in the naval and the air part. And then there's the exercise Konkan, which has been there. It's a biennial exercise. I'm sure that will get a flip. It will get a flip in technology and interoperability exercises and operations, which will be again a major step forward. And then tri-service logistic drills, they are going to be there. Tri-service logistic drills, those practices of those will be emerging. So defense roadmap with Britain has emerged as a very major step forward. It's a force multiplier in India emerging in times to come as a major arms and armament exporter.
Okay, all right. I want to bring in on that note Dhruv Chauhan as well, who joins us as a student from University of Leeds in the UK. Dhruv, I want to understand from your perspective, given that you are, I'm assuming you're in the UK right now, how exactly is the free trade agreement being read in the UK by the UK public?
Thank you so much, Devika, for having me right now. So currently the free trade agreement which was signed today by the PM Modi and PM Starmer, I would say, well, from where I am standing in Leeds, FTA is getting mixed and mostly optimistic reception. The headline says that is historic and forecast to boost UK economy by around 4.8 billion annually. But among fellow students, I would say particularly Indians, may be it undergrads or postgrads, there's a sense of caution excitement because on one hand the FTA includes measures like easier visas for Indian students and job seekers, which is rightly seen as a lifetime for those for of us like planning to make a career in UK. Some are already joking that finally I can stay and binge Netflix legally after graduation. Whereas on the other side, there's a talk about whether British public sees it as fair, especially because the NI exemption for the Indian temporary workers for up to 3 years have been gone up. Over here, I also heard one of my colleagues asking to another of them that are we giving more benefits to the guests than locals? It's basically because of the immigration laws which have been far more strict since May this year.
Okay.
But when I see it on the ground, especially in Leeds, which is a mixed treaty for the students, startup hopeful and early career professional. It is mostly positively chatter because a friend of mine from India studying business marketing was thrilled hearing that Scotch whisky tariffs will drop from 150 to 75% immediately, even eventually falling further. But let's say that it's a signal for government is seriously taking the reciprocity. A
Okay.
neighbor working for a tech startup said that tariff-free softwares and medical devices from India will have guaranteed entry to UK, which I personally think that which is a great advancement for the FTA, because people over here in India are like from India are like enjoying these things like anything.
Okay,
As the
all right.
PM
Okay,
himself said that.
okay, I have the last few minutes left. Ambassador Mukherjee, I would understand from your perspective, ma'am, beyond the immediate economic gains that have been promised, what are the broader geopolitical implications of this FTA? And can there now be an agreement that this is signaling a very clear shift in both the nation's long-term trade strategies, especially in the context of UK's agenda post-Brexit?
Definitely, I agree with you, Devika. It marks a very significant shift in UK's attitude towards free trade with developing countries, because earlier, when they were in the EU, they caused huge difficulties for the Indian negotiators because they used to have a service economy like ours with the same strengths and weaknesses, and they held up the EU negotiators on each and every issue which they thought could affect them, which is why the PTIA with the EU was delayed for 19 years because of the Brits. Today that the Brits have signed this agreement will facilitate an early signing of the FTA with the EU, which is almost ready for signature, and will convey a powerful message to the Americans that because of Trump's tariff wars on his closest allies, they are looking for other trading partners. They are looking for alternatives, and this will hopefully calm him down when we finalize our trade agreement with the Americans. Because Trump's public approach, which is to hold a stick and to hit the head of the trading partner and to agree with everything he says, it cannot be accepted by sovereign nations like India. That's not acceptable. So if we wanted to send a signal to him, we've done it today. We will send another signal to him when we sign the FTA with the EU, and we will send a third signal to him when we renegotiate those badly negotiated agreements that we have with some of the ASEAN countries, including Vietnam. We will do all that, and we will demonstrate, as I said, that we've come of age and that we are willing to make concessions. As far as our young colleague who talked about Scotch whisky, etc., those were just negotiating mechanisms. That extremely high duty we had on the Harley Davidson motorbike, which we removed, on Scotch whisky, etc., were negotiating mechanisms which were never intended to be permanent. They became semi-permanent because the other side refused to give us any concessions. In the process, we have developed our own indigenous liquor industry, and today the Indian single malt, they say, though I'm not a malt drinker, is as good or better than the so-called Glenfiddich, etc. So in a way, it has also helped the Indian liquor industry to come of age. So I don't know whether all Indians will rush to drink the new cheap Scotch coming from Scotland, because in any case, the joke, Devika, is that there is more whiskey consumed in India than has been ever produced in Scotland. Devika.
Right, absolutely. On that note, I've run out of time, but I thank all of our guests for joining us to take that conversation forward. Stay tuned, a very short break, coming back right up on the other side.